Hello, boys and girls. Board now, back with you for another television review. On this video, I will be talking about the third episode of the third season of Star Trek Discovery. The episode is called People of the Earth, and that is because that's where the crew and the ship of Discovery are heading in this episode, following on from them reuniting with Michael in the previous episode. They've decided to stay in this time zone, this era, and they've decided to help people on Earth rebuild like the universe, and obviously fight the forces that have disbanded the Federation basically, and have taken over and running a very very rogue draconian type universe. And so I enjoyed this one as well. There's some good world building again, there's some good individual character moments, and it again moves at a nice pace. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as the previous two episodes, the two-part opening to the season. I thought overall those episodes were better. I think this episode at times is a bit overly sentimental, which I think can jar a little bit sometimes, and it just didn't quite have the same level of enjoyment as I pick up my pen and drop it again. But it was still enjoyable. It was still building the season up nicely and giving it a lot of momentum. It was a bit of a weird one where for the first 15-20 minutes not a great deal happened. It was more about the character stuff and the crew reunited and just selling in a way the episode and the stakes. One thing I did like is there's a scene where obviously Michael is reunited with the crew and talking to them individually. Then they have this emotional reunion. So you get that scene, and at the same time you've got Giorgio off in the distance, and there's this sort of cold icy stare between them, and it's that sort of look that really only an actress like Michelle Yeoh can do, and it's classic Giorgio. But at the same time there's definitely a begrudging respect between Michael and Giorgio, even though they basically still have this animosity and there's a distance between them. They still have respect for one another professionally, so I did like that moment and shot. And there's various things going around the crew. Tilly at one point gets all emotional, and it's this interesting thing about she's upset about the people left behind back on Earth in the time period that they're from, and it is this sort of bizarre thing where basically she's come to terms with the fact that, well, as far as they're concerned now, those people are dead because they've obviously jumped forward whatever it is 100 years into the future. So the people they've left behind technically to them are dead now. So it's this weird sort of thing, and just selling that and the stakes and reflecting and very sort of melancholic. At the same time she's having this emotional reunion with Michael. So there's that stuff. Also, Michael officially, allows Saru to be the captain now, because there was this element of doubt, and he's almost gracefully willing to step down and say, no, you're the captain now that you're back. But Michael stands firm and says, no, there's no doubt about it. I'll be your number one, but you are the captain. And yeah, they did that quite nicely in that one scene, so it didn't drag out too long. And so it was a cool little scene, and you could feel the respect between them. There's also some pretty good stuff with Book in this episode. Book and Michael. Again, I think they have really good chemistry, the actors. But Book is like welcomed onto the ship, although not welcomed by all the characters, but he's reintroduced because they decide that they sort of need to work with him, and they could do with his like delirium and all the rest of it. But obviously we get a bit more with him and Michael and their relationship and like the banter back and forth. But there's some interesting stuff with Book, because Giorgio actually is the person waiting for him when he re-enters, and she kind of tries to push his buttons and kind of says, well, because he's like, where's Michael? And he's like, Giorgio's like, oh, you mean your girlfriend, sort of thing. So she's kind of trying to get under his skin and wind him up, and Michael has obviously told him about Giorgio, because he says, oh, let me guess, you must be Giorgio. And that's a fun little scene, because really he doesn't take the bait, he keeps his cool. And then there's some stuff with Saru and Book, just because for some reason they've changed his name to Booker. I mean, in this episode, I guess Book was maybe a shortened version. It was more of a nickname. So we find out his name's like Booker. But yeah, Saru doesn't trust him, and there's this point in the episode where they do kind of need him for a delirium, and he's basically caught in the middle and helping them out, and it obviously gets to a point where just him being on the ship and them having the dilithium is potentially putting them at risk. So, but it obviously makes sense that Saru isn't necessarily going to trust him, because he doesn't know him, and he hears and he was a carrier, so he has sort of reasons to maybe question him. It's a good character beat anyway, that Saru doesn't just take his word on things, and almost puts a question to Michael that, yeah, how well do you know him, or can you really trust him? So again, some pretty good stuff with Book in this episode. Now, personally, I still think it's possible then he cannot be trusted, and that there might be a darker side to him, or something like a secret lurking in the background, because him and Michael, they kind of say by the end of the episode they have this emotional goodbye, but you obviously get more sort of character building and more into their relationship. But I just have this feeling that it could be the way to go drama-wise, just to have him. It's either then he's going to turn out to be a villain, or maybe it's just then he's hiding something which is going to be a little bit shady. It's just a feeling I have. It's sort of something I hope in a way, rather than them just going down the predictable like romance route, and just maybe going for the melodrama a bit of will they, won't they, or can they stand being apart, that kind of thing. But we'll see how it goes. Obviously, so far I'm quite enjoying the stuff we're getting from them. But as we get into like the main meat of this episode, it's that they're entering like the Earth's atmosphere, and they're basically held up by like the commander of Earth, this kind of Starfleet officer, and she's very suspicious because she hasn't even heard of them or seen this ship, and sort of wondering why they're planning to land on Earth, and puts them through all sorts of like questions, and obviously doesn't really believe what they're telling her, and she's a very kind of direct kind of figure who says we're coming aboard, we're gonna search the ship basically, and they beam aboard, and the whole crew are like being interrogated in every area. And this character, I don't know if we're going to see her again or not, but she's a decent enough character. I think the actress does a pretty good job, but basically at some point things start to go wrong because she starts. Basically, they have to pretend that there's no delirium on the ship and there's no pirates on the ship, which kind of technically Book is because of his past and because he's not like officially mandated to be on the ship. So at one point they have to dress up Book in like a uniform and he has to pretend. And they start interrogating, as I said, the ship and searching all through it. And then there's like this threat from this other ship who are like this alien looking guy who wants to take the delirium, and it turns out he's like this rogue sort of pirate who's like known to the commander of the Earth, and so you get like this sort of war starting to play out, and then Michael and Book tried to sort of sort things out on their own. They go off like half cough, and they're on like Book ship with the delivery, and so it becomes this whole thing. And as it turns out, the alien character who I forget his name now actually, but he basically turns out to be like just this irregular human who's like sort of dressed in like a disguise, and he basically turns out to be someone obviously who's fallen down on his luck, who's having problems, and who has turned to this through desperation, because he needs the supplies and the rest of it. And so the way this is all resolved is very nicely done, and it does feel like classic Star Trek, because there's like this tense standoff between like the commander of Earth and then this other cat, Wen, that's his name, Wen, yeah. And Saru has to be like the mediator, and he quite directly tells them, why not discuss it, sit down and work something out, because he sees that they both have something, that Wen is just this character who's just trying to survive, and kind of, circumstances have worked against him sort of thing. So he kind of, like, Saru is this really effective liberator, like mediator, and they do sort of work together and decide that, hey, we can sort of help him out like so. And the commander's very, very impressed with how Saru handled the situation. So based on that, she allows them to go on and beam aboard Earth sort of thing. But for a while, it's all this kind of tension, and Michael and Book are kind of making the situation worse on the other ship. And at one point, they're potentially going to be like, shot at, because it's kind of them facing off with Wen's ship sort of thing, and obviously they find out about them having dilithium and all this stuff. So you get some pretty major drama. And there's also distrust the other way with Book and Saru. Like Book questions Saru, and Michael's like, no, Saru will come through because that's what we do. He cares about me. He cares about his crew and all the rest. So all this is kind of classic Star Trek in a way. And it's nice to see, actually, even in this really kind of revamped and very modern Star Trek story, it's still nice to see some of these core themes and core moments kind of stand out. But yeah, and then there's this stuff with this crew member who's part of like the commander of Earth's crew, and this young teen who's like only 17 or something, but she's like this like whiz kid, this science whiz kid. But yeah, it's actually revealed that she's like the like crew member they've been looking for, but except she's like really young, basically, in this like future, and they're not quite sure how it is, but she says she can't tap into like their memories, but they ask, can we keep her aboard? She could be useful, and the commander allows it. She says, yeah, you can keep her aboard. And then there's all this stuff when they finally arrive to Earth, and there's this emotional thing because they actually get to like this tree, and it's this moment with Tilly where she's like, yeah, this is the tree in the previous dimension, the spot where we took off, before we left for our space adventure and all this. So it's just this sort of moment where they get to savor it for like. Saru gives them 5 minutes before they have to set off on their mission. So that's the latest Star Trek Discovery. Again, as I said, solid stuff, enjoyable, and I think so far, with 1 or 2 small complaints, I think this season has been really good so far, in my opinion, and I think it's on course to be the best season so far. So fingers crossed it continues. I'll be back soon with more Star Trek Discovery. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.